Well, thank you everyone. My name's Mark Catchlove. I'm part of Herman Miller. You're in our showroom. And I'm only going to talk for about 2 hours, just to worry Chris, it's okay. I just wanted to tell you about this building very quickly. In this building was the first ever commercial TV, but also in this building you are following The Who, The Beatles, The Rolling Stones, Dave Clark 5, Dusty Springfield, all sang in this. Jimi Hendrix all played in the basement of this building because Ready Steady Go from the 60s was filmed in this building. So you should have brought your guitars, because I have, and I played in the same building as The Who and The Beatles and The Rolling Stones. So thank you very much for joining us. We're a global, we're the largest office furniture company in the world, but we're very much a human-centered company. And I came across Chris, we shared a platform, I think it was an online platform initially, and I was talking about how to create great workplaces, and this guy came on and wowed us with this kind of great vision. And as a company, I did say to you, we've got to connect afterwards, and we're very pleased to have been able to donate from Herman Miller Cares. Herman Miller is an over 100-year company, but we were founded by a guy called DJ Dupree. He called it Herman Miller because his very rich father-in-law was called Herman Miller, who lent him the money, all right? So always keep in with the rich in-laws, okay? Always a good idea, yeah. It's always a great idea. But I just want to leave you with a quote. DJ Dupree said this, that in the long run, businesses and business leaders should be judged not on their products, not on their profits, but on their impact on humanity. And as a company, we want to do that, and I believe that's one of the things that Global Teacher are going to do.
If you mix brilliance with bravery, that we can ignite something. Even this conversation alone can ignite the people that are going to change the world, because there's people who have been anointed. You can't teach the brilliance and the anointings. There's people who hit the game of life and they've got something that they're going to do no matter what school they go to. They just know how to do it. They knew how to do it before they got here, and they were going to do it.
Have you ever had a moment in life where you are so overcome by a thought, an idea, or a concept? Like a bolt of lightning, it comes at you, and the excitement it ensues is life-changing. From then on, the only possibility is to bring this idea to life. Tonight is about celebrating these thoughts, celebrating a dream, a pursuit, a journey through the passion, the excitement, the doubt, and the fear. A journey of countless decisions to push through resistance and continuously ask what is on the other side. Over the last 2 years, we have learned what it takes to bring ideas to life. And tonight, we'd like to share that story in a way that's real, honest, and courageous. Around the room, you'll see a team of people, and within each of these people is a spark that's alive and crazy enough to make them believe that they're the ones to change the world. We believe that this exists within us all, and it is our job to ignite that within you. We want to serve, to help others, and to show people that all is not lost, to show people that change is on the horizon. We call ourselves change makers, doers, believers. When asked why, our answer is, why not? Welcome to the launch of Global Teacher.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight. Tonight is about a dream to be told. Growing up in Malaysia, my town was a recipient of library books donated by public libraries from England. Those books arrived by ship in tea chests, a dozen tea chests. And each tea chest opened up a world of literature, authors, genres that I would never otherwise have discovered. Access and exposure to those books fired up my imagination, made me dream big, made me dream bold. Those dreams are a big part of my journey and how it's possible that I'm even here today, a young girl from Malaysia. But that was 40 plus, almost 40 years ago. I don't want to reveal my age here. And the world has changed a lot, right? And the world is changing really quickly. But the change we want to see is not happening quickly enough. When we do, however, see the change we want to see, that change is being driven by our young people. Our young people are capable and driven to create change and make that change happen. What we want is a huge host of young people that can think, that can identify a problem and engineer a solution. Like William Kamkomba from Malawi. He pored over his library books, designed a prototype wind turbine, and then begged his village to dismantle the village's only bicycle so he could build a full-size wind turbine, which turned out to be an incredible decision because it saved the village's crops during a drought. Or Richard Trure from Kenya, who was trying to figure out a way to protect his cows from the lions, but also protect the lions from being thinned out because they were attacking the cows. And what he found was when he walked around the pen at night with a torch, the lions did not attack. But he couldn't walk around every night with a torch. So he devised a few light bulbs at different locations using an indicator from a motorbike and a solar panel to keep it going, and kept the lions away while he slept at night. At Global Teacher, we want to inspire a movement of young people who want to make stuff, solve problems, be the change that they could possibly be. And the way we want to do that is through digital education for all. And that's why our mission of digital education for all is so important. Digital education is today's learning content. It's the content built for today's world. It's the content built for today's challenges. It's what your sons, what your daughters might be experiencing in their classroom here in the UK, in France, in Finland, in Japan, in Canada. And that's also why it's so important that when we have a tool like Pod, we can use our technology to aim higher. With Pod, we can level the playing field. We can use our technology to inspire that solutions are dreamed up rather than being handed out as a handout. We can dream. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a tremendous privilege to be part of this amazing Global Teacher team. And I'd like you to welcome and join me in welcoming Chris, our chief dreamer, visionary, and leader, to the floor. Chris.
Thanks, Sumi. I think one of the most amazing things for me in this journey has been building a team of amazing people just like Sumi and those that you're about to meet, whose personal kind of experience in life, whose personal story resonates so much with our mission. And that's to teach 1 million marginalized students through this product that you're about to see. But if you don't mind, I'd like to take you right back to the beginning of where this dream began. And of course, I could say in a very typical fashion, when I was a child, I used to just take everything apart and work out how it worked inside, right? Because that's what every designer and engineer says. But I'd like to pick up a different thread, one that exists on the schoolyard. I always remember, and I have a childhood school friend here from Hillview, so Hillview Schoolyard, walked in one morning and saw my classmates in the corner, and they were all hovered over this area, and I was like inquisitively over. Went over and saw what they were doing. They were about to stamp on this earthworm because it was big, you know, it's big and it's novelty, so let's just stamp on it. So I shout, "Stop! That's God's creature." So, and those of you who know me, that's probably something that would come out of my mouth. And so obviously everyone laughed. But at the time I couldn't work out why they couldn't see it like that. And I've always had inherently this care for living creatures, right? And that was given to me by this man on the left, Kenneth Nutman, aka my granddad. Now my granddad was a policeman, a man of principle, and he taught me so many amazing things in life, such as always say please and thank you, just a fundamental. And another cool lesson, or a kind of a way to live was always hold the door open for people. And what I think he said in that moment was, look out for others, lend out a hand. And to be honest, the penny didn't drop until this moment for me, because whilst it's important to reach out a hand for others, it's also important to reach out a hand for yourself. This is the 15th of September 2016. I'll never forget the date because it was a moment that something switched in my mind. I was suffering quite bad mentally from OCD behind closed doors, to be honest. And I used to search the internet, Google, OCD cure. That's how desperate it got. I need to just find a cure. I found a subreddit and this guy was going, well, what I did was I started to take vitamins, I meditated, cold showers, and basically started to read these books, blah, 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 and changed my life, and I started to heal my OCD. I thought, literally that window there, I went over to it, just put my hands up like that, and I just breathed a sigh of relief, because finally for me there was an answer. There was hope. So I picked up this book, The Power of Now, and I began to meditate. Now those of you who have meditated before or have done the inner work will know that you start to glimpse inspiration, moments of peace, moments of clarity, and get these inspired thoughts. This is the same day, so when you scroll back in your phone, this is 15th of September 2016, and I just underlined some key points to show you how amazing I am. So help people, make a change, take an innovative idea to market, cut down on takeaways. So with this new lease of life, a new inspiration, I really solidified the way I was. I loved coming up with ideas, right? And not just any ideas that I believe can change the world. In our final year as design engineers, we were tasked with, the brief was for your final year project, choose a subject area, find a problem, design a solution. It was like an open brief, right? Probably heard something similar before. I chose to study education in the developing world because I knew for almost a fact that the quality of education in developing countries just wasn't the same as what we were lucky enough to receive. And what I found was 15% of the world's adults are illiterate. So that's around about 1 billion people in this day and age who can't read or write. And if we take a look at the educational landscape today, right, in the developed economy, we have the e-learning sector booming. It's about to grow by $38 billion by 2024. I mean, what does that even mean? I don't know, it's just big numbers. By contrast, in Cameroon, one textbook is shared between 12 children. Now, that's clearly not a feasible way to learn. So I defined my problem, lack of resources, a tangible problem, or one that I felt truly that I could solve. So I looked at what others are trying to do to solve it. And I found this organization, incredible organization called Books to Africa. And they've donated over 1 million textbooks via shipment. They go into schools, box up used textbooks, and ship them to Africa. Now the problem with this is it takes almost 6 months to get there. It's very expensive, as you can imagine, to fund a shipment. And when the books get there, they typically become worn in hotter climates. And I'll never forget this moment. I was running a shower, walking around on my student landing, and I just thought, hang on a second, I'm using things like Moodle and blah, 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 all this digital education available. Why can't you donate digitally? In the modern world, we've seen everything evolve from paper-based to digital, £5 note, contactless card, bookkeeping, paper-based, free agent, Sage, software, Excel. Why can't we emulate that evolution and bring up the donation of digital education to its counterparts, money, clothing, food? Imagine the impact. And at this point, I really thought, okay, problem solved. I thought I cracked it. But what about when there's, what about in the most rural areas, right? What about in the most rural school where there's no internet and no electricity? How are we going to get the digital content out there? Meet Pod. Now, Pod was and is a solar power projector that's low cost, durable, and basically gives access to all of the donated material in rural areas of the world. So then I finished, I was glad to finish university. It's really, really stressful, pretty similar to doing what we've just done the last couple of weeks, is prepare for this. That was an amazing moment for me. And I was just hyped. I had this idea, I got the grade I wanted, and then I got a 9-to-5 job. Now, whilst this wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, what it did teach me was kind of the fundamentals of business, of things, and just set me up, really. This, when I was working for Glasshouse, the company was called, I was about 1.5 years in, and the company went into administration.
Now, anyone who knows me at the time knew that all I was talking about was this projector idea. And everyone was like, this is your perfect opportunity to set up that idea. So I was kind of fortunate, really, that I had this window of opportunity. My cloud coach was born. And since then, we've shouted about the movement, spoke to anyone who'd listen. We've partnered with some amazing people. We've had conversations, Ed Place, who are here today, which is incredible, and special mention to Ed Place because the most accommodating, awesome team who really just aligned with our mission totally. And some awesome people on the hardware front, and as designers and engineers, and you speak to a couple of these companies and you're like, this is overwhelming, this is so cool. So we did that, we rebranded, we assembled a team, as I said earlier, of inspiring change makers. We built a platform. We developed the projector till we were blue in the face. And then we arrived at this final design, which for any of you who have been through this journey before, that's a moment that you're striving for, and we got there right. We have the projector, let's manufacture it. Only for the product design company that we were working with to say, you're finished now, all you need to do, right, is put together a business plan, raise £100,000 for the tooling to make the thing, but don't worry, you'll be able to make it for £30 a unit, the shell. I mean, it didn't sound too bad at the time, but I saw £100,000 a lot just to actually get the thing made. So it was a little bit disheartening. I thought, I've been led astray by industry. I'm out, fresh out of uni, you're supposed to hold my hand and guide me. And they didn't, and I was a bit stuck. So what I needed was a friend, someone who knew what I knew, probably a little bit better, if I'm honest. Someone who I could bounce ideas off, someone who could be there, listen to my ideas, I listen to his, and we work it out together. We meet weekly, we'll challenge the industry. That's the dream. And now before I hand over to Jack, I'll leave you with this. Before Jack unveils this amazing new product, I'll leave you with this. My advice is simple. Dream big, look after yourself, and don't forget to reach out a hand. Because people, the person who helps others simply because it must or should be done, and because it is the right thing to do, is without a doubt a real superhero. Jack.
Okay, so as Chris mentioned, my name's Jack. I think, to be honest, Chris has wore his heart on his sleeve in that presentation, and I applaud him for that, because a lot of time in industry, it's very hidden, it's very behind the scenes, and nobody gets to see the blood, sweat and tears that we went through, especially Chris, because I've only been with him for a year. So in that, I would like to talk about one or two things just before I get on to the actual product itself. So my philosophy, we talk about this a lot at uni. One of my ex-students is here, if he wants to put his hand up, just embarrass him a little bit. So I speak about this a lot because it defines who you are as a designer, and it means you come across in a certain way. If you can explain yourself, 90% of industry is culture fit, and I've really learned that with Chris. So my philosophy is design is a conscious form of evolution. What the hell does that mean? So I don't know whether it's right or wrong, it's just my opinion. Now, in much the same way that nature evolves plants, animals to be taller, faster, more efficient, nature does it unconsciously. A plant cannot alter its own DNA and then think, right, I need bigger leaves tomorrow. It just can't do it. It just happens unintentionally. Every time a cell mutates, something happens every now and then you eventually get to a taller plant or whatever. Now, with design, we evolve the DNA of a product with iteration, step by step, and we evolve that product until it solves a problem. In the same way that nature does, but thousands, millions of times quicker even. Although there is some things that nature does better than us, but we'll gloss over that. And again, I hammered this into my students every single lecture. The first rule of product design is that product design is never about the products. It is always about the story. No matter what you do, every decision you make needs to be about the end user. Why is it designed like this? How is that going to help them? How is every little component, every curve, every fillet, every extrusion going to help that person? Is it about reducing weight? You know, it could be a million different things. So on the topic of storytelling, I would like to introduce Oswin, who, I mean, Chris has spoke to him a lot more than I have. You know, you might end up chatting about him after this, but he's a really nice guy. I've met him once or twice, and he runs his own company, but he is on the ground. He knows this, you know, Tanzania inside and out when it comes to teaching. He's on the ground. He sees the best environments the teachers are in. He sees the worst. So on that, I'd like to use Oswin as a case study, because, you know, we do that a lot in design. We use case studies. We relate the product back to the people and the problems. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, plain and simple. So, oh, sorry. Right, Chris, would you like to unveil pod? Butterfingers. Da-da-da. Thanks very much. I am a bit nervous, hence why my butterfingers just slip, but it's okay. I mean, we're talking 2 seconds. Okay, so this is pod, meat pod. This is, I think, version 4 by now, probably more. It's really easy to set up. It's really easy to use. I've worked very hard on it, and so has Chris. And I'm really excited to walk you through some of the features and how we've helped to solve some of the problems. Now, there is 2 different units here, just with one solar panel, and it's as easy as this to set up. So when the teachers get the package, lift the solar panel up, open out the legs, take the included cable, plug it into the battery pack, take the cable in the classroom, then it's as simple as plugging it in and turning it on. It's as simple as that. Now that may look simple, but believe me, the amount of stress that took to get to work, it's the simplest things that take the longest, and you know, I've really learnt that. So now I've unveiled it, I'm going to walk you through some of the features and how we're helping people. This pod system is off-grid, anytime, anywhere. This has never been done before, and obviously in the past Chris has done it, but now it's very real and it works. So I'm just going to talk you through some of the features. But first, there is a lot of problems in these areas. I'm just going to focus on 3 predominantly. The classrooms are incredibly overcrowded. It's ridiculous. That each class has between 90 and 120 students per one teacher. Now, obviously, I used to lecture up in York, and I honestly give my hat off to those teachers. I could not do that. I struggled lecturing with a class of 30, never mind 120 in a hot environment with no equipment whatsoever. They're doing a fantastic job with what they've got. But instead of giving them what they need, i.e. books, let's give them something they didn't know they needed, pod. The main thing they are struggling with is no resources, no electricity, 1 book for every 13 students. It's not great. And one of the current solutions is there is 1 tablet for every child. Now that sounds great, you know, problem solved, woo, done. But when you think about every one of those students has to have a fully working tablet or a computer, the numbers don't quite compute, and it's not a feasible solution. Maybe for a tiny class, yeah, but not for that amount of students, and that's predominantly the kind of demographic that you're looking at. So with that in mind, I'll take you through some of the features. Okay, so we'll start with the solar panel. The solar panel is a 50-watt panel. Now, what's great about this is the wires are built in. You don't need to do anything. You take it out the box and you just plug it in. It works. The 3D printed stand that you can see has been custom designed to fit flush behind the projector so that it takes up less space in transport. And like I said, the wires included. Now, what the best thing about this size solar panel is, the battery is there, yes, but the power goes through the battery pack, through this controller. It can actually power the projector on its own. The battery pack is there as a redundancy. I'll get onto that in a minute. It's really simple, it's really easy to use, and what it does is gives the teachers the confidence they need to actually teach anywhere. I mean, lucky for us, Africa's pretty sunny, So you're taking advantage of that because solar panels, they're great because sunlight is sustainable for one. It is infinite, and if it's sunny, you can take it anywhere. It's as simple as that. That ticks all the boxes for us, so obviously we're going to go with solar technology. Moving on to the battery pack. The battery pack encases a lead acid battery. That's incredibly easy to transport between countries because that's one of the issues we've overcome. I have shown it working. You just plug them in and then turn it on with a switch at the top. The switch is flush, so that even in transport, even if it's knocked, it's very unlikely that the battery pack's going to turn on and drain. Again, coming back to the teachers in the environment, I want to make sure that when they open this system, the battery pack is always ready to go. So there's no excuses not to turn up for class, oh, this projector's not working. That's not going to happen. So I've made sure to build in this in a way that is easy and it just works. That's my main focus. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, I think Johnny Ive said. And you know, it sounds really cringy, but I've tried to follow that through in what I've done. There is also some included handles so that when you're transporting it, it's nice and safe and secure because obviously you don't want to be dropping the battery pack. That's not ideal. On the display, there is the voltage, which you know may not mean much to people, but below that there is the solar panel battery and light bulb indicating when the solar panel is charging that or powering the projector directly. I do want to stress that even without the battery pack, this will power that directly. This is the redundancy. So the battery pack can actually power the entire system for 6 hours straight. So even if it was cloudy, if they want to teach at night, you know, if wherever they want to teach, whenever they want to teach, this system is able to deliver that content for 6 hours straight. Now that is a full school day, including, you know, your lunch break. So we've made sure as a backup to have that there, even when there's no sunlight, on the off chance. There is loads of little, you know, nice little things that I've included, one of which is that switch that I mentioned. Because it is flush, this is its off state, you know, up, and then this is its on state. The off state is its default state, so even if it is knocked on the off chance, it's going to be knocked to the off state, which means, again, it's less likely to drain in transport or even between the classroom and another classroom because it is intended to be moved from class to class depending on who actually needs it. I'll talk about the projector itself. The projector itself has been designed to be friendly, easy to use, approachable, because the last thing I wanted to do in terms of the design and its language was to communicate, to come across as intimidating and complicated. You know, we can all relate to that when you get this, you know, I work in the Apple shop in York, and the amount of people that come in and like, I just don't know, it's scary, and I'm like, you just click on, like, you know. And I really wanted to alleviate that, and I think these friendly colours, the curvature, the friendly nature of the design helps to convey that sense of approachability. You'll notice the colours are quite friendly, you know, contrasting blue and yellow. Everything that's blue indicates an input. Again, easy to follow, easy to use. And the best thing about it is, you know, it is really small, but it just encourages you to play. You know, you want to move these mechanisms, you want to move the focus ring, you want to take the remote off and use it. Everything clicks, it's quite satisfying to use. It encourages us to play, and when you do end up inevitably sliding the mechanism to the left, pod turns on and says hello. There is an SD card at the back, which I'll get onto in a minute. Again, this sliding mechanism, I get really excited because I spend so much time on it, and then I just like, look at this, look at this, look at this. Again, relating it back to the teachers, when the vent/switch, this is actually an on switch as well, again, reducing the complexity of the whole system, making it easy. When the vent is in its left position, the projector is obviously on, displaying the content, and the fan in the projector is directly in front of this vent. Now, when it's in its off position, like this activates a little switch which turns the entire system off. Now, that's good for two reasons. One is you can't accidentally turn it on when the vent's closed. Again, obviously it would overheat, that wouldn't last, that wouldn't be very good. And two, it prevents any dust and debris from hitting the lens, getting in the projector, again, making it last longer. they're not going to pick up on this. I don't expect anyone to be like, oh, that's really cool, it's going to last longer. It just will, and it gives them peace of mind again. On the side, you can see there is an adjustable focus ring, which is quite easy to use, but again, it's tight enough that it won't be knocked. And there's just little adjustments that you need just to make sure that the content is as crystal clear as possible, because each classroom is different. We don't have set distances like we do, in England. Every classroom is the same. It varies a lot, so I've had to account for that. And on the bottom, there is a removable magnetic stand, which can be adjusted. So you can actually adjust the angle simply by moving this forward or back. Again, just to make sure that the content is exactly where it needs to be and is as clear as possible. And if you don't need the stand, you don't need it. Just take it off. Okay, now let's talk about probably the most interesting part, the remote. The amount of time I spent on this was unbelievable. I'm printing parts that are 1/5 of a millimetre thick just to get it to work, So I have demonstrated that the remote is magnetic. It uses 8 neodymium magnets inside, which are super strong. I mean, it is really satisfying. You'll probably want to try it afterwards. But again, coming back to the functionality and the design, there's no icons or anything on it. You don't need to think about what you're doing. It's up, down, left, right, select and back. It's as simple as that. And they are raised, so you don't even need to look. Again, coming back to the teachers and what they need, the last thing they need is to, like, imagine if I was presenting to you and I was walking to the back, to the front, to the back to adjust some buttons on the projector, come back, oh no wait, that's the wrong lesson, go back again, click it. That's the last thing you need. So with this, the user experience is elevated dramatically to the point where the teachers remain at the front of the classroom at all times, where the students should be looking and where the content is. They don't need to think about what they're doing, they just click and navigate the system. It does use an infrared light with the receiver just on the front there. And I won't take it out because the parts will fall out, but it is a custom design remote that I've helped design and program, and it does use a user replaceable off-the-shelf battery as well. So even when it is expected to last around about 1.5 years, and when it does run out, it's really easy. So you just stick your thumbnail in and replace it, just like the other battery. Moving on, I would like to introduce you to Lumi 2.0, our 2nd generation operating system, and I would like to give it a demo now if you would like to swap the HDMIs. I might have to press, yes, see. Wait for that to, okay. So this is the new system. Again, you can see the language of the system kind of follows on from this. It's very friendly, it's very organic, and the colours match, so you know that this system is part of this. There's a synergy between the digital and the physical. If you want to, let's say a teacher wants to find some content, they can either search by category or subject there, they can search by age group, so obviously the teacher would just navigate through this. They can find a resource manually by typing in exactly what they want if there's something specific, like calculus, which I'm glad I'll never do again. This is the kind of thing that they'll see. So let's say that, they just want to go on all content. They've got an easy afternoon, or they just want to pick something specific. We'll choose made from plants or animals as an example. And again, I would like to massively thank Ed Place for they have donated all of this content, and it has been an absolute lifesaver. I just want to, they've been so helpful, and it helps to take this system to the next level, because without this, we'd have to create everything from scratch, and it's fantastic, it just works. So if we just, this is the kind of thing you're after, don't click on the PDF yet. If you've got the right one and you're happy with it, this is the thing you want to teach, just click Start Activity up in the top right. Obviously you just click, give that a sec to load. So this is the kind of content. It's very simple, very easy to follow, and obviously it does depend on the subject and the age category. It is dynamic, it's not a PDF. It changes depending on what the inputs are initially, which takes it again on a whole nother level. So let's start the lesson and let's pretend we're in class. So, right, this wool hat is made from material which grows on, anyone want to help?
Sheep. Hands up, please.
Hands up, yeah. If we want to go with sheep, check your answer. Are we correct? Yes, we are. Right, next question. Let's pick a wrong one. Cotton grows. Anyone want to shout out?
On plants.
On plants?
No, that's correct.
You want to?
That's rude.
All good. And then click next. We'll do one more, but we'll get it wrong. Chris, you want to do this one?
It shows what's part of a living plant.
Are you sure? Yeah. We'll check. Oh, right. So again, this dynamically it's not just a PDF, and obviously Mrs. Williamson is not very happy, and that does dynamically change as well as a little bit of a joke. Yeah. So I won't go too much into it. I'll leave it as it is for now because we will be demoing more in the future, but this is just a little taster of what we can do with the system and the remote and the projector and everything else included. So if we just switch back to the presentation. Oh, I'm looking down there and the remote's down here. Is it not? Okay, so that's an in situ example of what it would look like. Again, the teacher would be at the front just like I am, where the focus should be. And lastly, I do want to talk about technology because what we've achieved is honestly incredible. We've, sorry. Okay, so everything you can see here, this, even the legs are all 3D printed. Now, if you don't know what 3D printing is, my best analogy that I can come up with today is organized spaghetti that just kind of dries in a specific shape, if that makes sense. If you're not too technical, that's probably the best explanation I can give. Now, why is that good? What does that even mean? Now, with 3D printing, what we're able to do is use one machine to create all of these parts. And that one machine has traveled with me from York to my work, doing everyone's heading at work, and from York, from my work to Sunderland where Chris is, and we've proven it works. We don't have any waste whatsoever. I mean, obviously in prototyping there is, but these don't have any waste. We only use the material we need, which is very sustainable. And which I think probably the best thing about this material is it's made from PLA. Now, if you don't know, PLA is fully biodegradable. So at the end of the cycle of these products, they can be put in a composter and composted and turned into food for another plant or anything else. So we do care about sustainability. In the future, I would like to make this entire system fully circular, but baby steps. It's taken us this far to get to here. Now, all the technical stuff is very good, you know, it's interesting, but again, why is that good for the teachers? What does that actually mean for the teachers and the students? Well, because we can 3D print, if me and Chris are out in the field and something goes wrong, I can have the problem fixed before I've even got home. I can print out in the field wirelessly and have this printing anywhere I need, as long as I've got power. On top of that, that one machine can make an infinite amount of parts and fixings. Now that's really cool, and what that allows us to do is adapt and change very dynamically. These bigger companies are really good at what they do, you know, and I could probably never compete with them in that respect, but we're very dynamic, we're very adaptable, and if something goes wrong, if something's great, we just change it and we adapt and evolve, just like I mentioned earlier on, to suit the situation. Now, again, coming back to the teachers and the students, referencing Simi's story earlier on, let's imagine if a future where the teachers and the makers of the world and, you know, the country and anywhere it needs to be honest, let's imagine giving them the tools not only to educate themselves but to actually make their own equipment. And like, it's incredible to think about where this can go. Sorry, I get really excited when I sorry, I've just lost my point. I'm really sorry, guys. Okay. So with this kind of technology, we are challenging everything about the way industry works, and I'm really excited to be using this. and it's just the beginning. It really is just the beginning. Stuff like this is fantastic, and no one else is doing anything like it, not at this level, especially when we get to scale. And imagine, one last thought, I'll leave you with this. Typically in industry, the guys like me, the designers, the graphic designers, they make stuff on their own with manufacturers. But let's imagine in a future where not only the teachers and the makers, you know, referencing Sumi again, could make stuff. What if they could actually donate parts to us and they be the manufacturers? What if the people who donate documents can also donate time, money and products to help us out? That's the kind of future I want, and that's our vision. And with that, I will say thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Jack. So what's next for Global Teacher? I wasn't particularly going to plan on this, but I thought it would be fitting just last minute to tell a story. And so we got about a year and a bit ago £10,000 off a major donor called Dr. Tony Trapp, and he's an engineer himself, and he said, go and build a projector and come back to me and show me that it works. So you have £10,000, you've got one mission, right? And as I told you earlier, we had this final design, and the guy goes, you need to raise £100,000. And I'm like, well, I just need to build one and show this guy, and then hopefully we might have the £100,000. So you can imagine the frustration in that moment. I randomly emailed the guy and said, Tony, we've got this far. I sent him a picture of the 3D printer projector, and he said, come and see me at my house. I've just sold my company. I'm retiring. I went there, pitched. He's a hard taskmaster, and if he's watching on live, forgive me. He's asking the difficult questions, right? After the meeting, I was so exhausted, so drained. I was driving home, and I've learned just to be in the sulk, right? I was just fully in it. I was like, I don't even know why I can't do that again. Like, you know, that type of level, that type of place, right? But then you get home and then you make yourself some lunch, ring Jackson, I need all of the list of the parts, I need all of the cost. When we built this spreadsheet in about 3 hours, right, for a 6-figure amount, because it's do or die at this moment, right? This is like 3 weeks ago. So the launch was timely planned, right? It was all under control. And then I sent him an accompanying presentation, and I said, Tony, it's this much money, it's bold, but believe in me, you should know by now, if I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it. And I'm thinking, probably asked him for too much, but never mind. And he comes back and he said, Chris, this is a phrase from the Northeast, shy Ben's getting out. And I just said, well, at least I say it to everyone. Well, at least it's not a bad response. So then I spent the next 2 weeks in absolute angst. I can't even describe the tension. Just constantly in my head, what about if we don't get it? What about if we don't get it? What about if we don't get it? Me and Jack are 3D printing parts, and Tony gives us an email and says, Chris, I've asked UBS Bank to clear the money. Jack was outside, getting a bit of fresh air. I checked the bank, and I just ran over and slapped the phone on the glass. And he looks at it and just goes, oh my God. So then we are running around the BIC. We got this money, we're employed, we're employing a team, we'll get office space, we're manufacturing 100 projectors next year, which is super exciting. We're going to Kenya with our charity partners, Coco, which is an amazing, like, kind of 12 months, right? So that's what's next. And that's it, really. Well, leave it there. What we'd like to do at this moment is open the floor to questions. So we thought we'd get a little panel together, invite Jess, who's a trustee, but she also has spent her time in international development, going to Tanzania on the ground for the last 5 years, and also Janice, who's a director of the organisation since day one and well before, as my mentor. So if you'd like to come up, please. And Jack, yeah, sorry, I forgot to see.
Who would like to start us off with a question?
Thank you for putting me in the middle. That's good.
Scared?
Terrified.
There we go. Front left.
I have a question about what can you actually project on the pod. So we have the SD card. You talked about PDFs and so on, but what kind of media can you project on it?
You have to excuse me, I am a bit nervous. So with the projector, it projects 500 nits, so it's more than bright enough for a classroom. In terms of the content, it comes preloaded on an SD card with what they specified beforehand before they ordered them. And then once they've got that, if they want to get more content and change it, they take the SD card out, go to the local town or village where they have internet access, just plug the SD card in, log into our online system, download anything they want, and I think we've got thousands of files at the minute. So that's the dynamic content, and it means we had a bit of a conversation earlier on as well. It is really just the beginning, because we found it in our research that a lot of these children actually learn English through cartoons and things like that, which I think is just mad. So we, in the future, we could actually open this up to create video content, additional PDFs and things, and dynamic, like engineering things that you would actually type in and it would change instead of just having content there. It would be more than that. It would be almost like designing for social impact as well. So helping these kids learn English as well as the actual STEM things as well. I think it's really just the beginning. I don't know if anyone else wants to.
Could I jump in? I think the best way to think about it is there's two solutions, offline and online. Online, we talk to the platform in collaboration with EdPlace real time. They've granted us access to their API. So we've got a map, like an interactive map, which tells you where 3G and 4G is. If we have 3G, 4G coverage, then we can actually pull directly from the API real time. So that's the online solution. Offline, as Jack mentioned, is almost like a relay run with a SD card. And that's what they do currently in rural settings with e-readers. So they'll load them into the back of a truck, go to the town, get an internet cafe, update them, and then back out to the rural school. Alternatively, we've thought about doing kind of software updates that they can download onto the SD, and just do that kind of model. So it works in two scenarios, really.
Great.
Anyone else? Right.
Yeah, I've got a similar train of thought in terms of the content. I work for a private foundation that delivers EdTech programs to developing nations. And I love your product. It's amazing. I think we chatted about 6 months ago, and it's lovely to be at this event. So I was thinking in terms of moving forward with the offline solution, do you have plans for making that more interactive in the future? Because I love what you have here, it's just really interesting to see whether there'll be more interaction with the product from students.
So I'm not sure, what do you mean about interaction with the product exactly?
I think with the remote control there, I could see like the engagement from the student level.
Yes, okay.
And them sort of engaging in the content that was uploaded online. So I wondered if there's plans for taking that to the next level.
Totally. I think Jack, I know Jack will. So me and Jack spoke about this a lot because we love to blue sky think and see where it goes. I'll not steal your thunder, Jack. The floor is yours. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a roadmap for the next 6 versions of this wrote down now. That is just, that's the amount of time I put into it. So with the remote, this is really just the beginning. So, when I was asking earlier on, what is a classroom? What can a classroom be with this? This is one of those times where you'd ask the same question. What is an input device? How can we actually engage these students on another level? So one of the things I was on about doing in the future was actually getting rid of the remote completely and using a camera on the front that would actually physically take into account that it would focus itself, and then when you get to the content, the children could go up and actually draw on the screen, even though there's nothing actually there, and engage. They could try, like a little bridge project. I remember doing that in school. They could draw geometry and things like that. And there's no tools. It's just whoever's in front of the screen is really the actual remote themselves, if that makes sense. So this is just the beginning. Where I'm wanting to take it, I'm trying to simplify the whole experience. You wouldn't even need that. I want to have a camera where you can actually just walk up and touch it, just like you can with a phone, or even this if it was touch screen. I'm not sure if it is, but I hope that answers your question.
It does. I love where you're at now. I think there's great potential. So thank you for having me.
Any more questions?
Last one. Well, firstly, I can see that there's a USB port, so I could have to charge my phone for a little bit. But because I'm obviously really proud to see how well the products turn out. Well done, you all. I'm just interested to see in terms of the engagement with the educational people that you can speak to in terms of resources, how's that been going over the last sort of year, and how do you see that going over the next few years and getting more of the resources to put onto your system?
Yeah, I think it definitely is a in like a huge part of the problem is a content challenge, because a lot of people will say, how do you get culturally appropriate content? And the simple answer is that's a partnership challenge, and it's about partnering with like-minded individuals who get the vision, who want to move with you, and also have culturally appropriate content. And in terms of how it's went, to be honest, the sell is quite easy, and it's like, this is what we're going to do. We want to make your content available offline, right? But the cool thing is, when it's on the SD card, it's all encrypted, so their content is safe. It can't be operated on anything other than pod, so then we can speak to the Ed Places, the Pearsons of the world, the Hodders, and then they know that they're not ruining their commercial model by donating content.
Great.
Thanks for the question.
And at the front, have you still got one?
Yeah, and actually you mentioned, so just to understand correctly, the whole unit is 3D printable, is that what you said?
Everything that's yellow and blue and black on the is entirely 3D printed.
Right. And the 3D printers, do they live here in the UK, or is it part of the plan to take to where?
Well, this is what's really interesting. At the minute, yes, we will be manufacturing them in England completely from scratch. In the future, what I was talking about was, what can a maker be with this kind of technology? We would look to expand this product range into other things. Instead of giving them, content, we'll give them tools as well as content. And I would, in the next version, I would look to actually design this this can actually be done, to be honest. Let's say in a town, in a local village, instead of ordering the whole thing, they could order a part from us and we send them a file. The environmental impact reduction from that is astronomical. I think about 70% of the environmental impact is through transport. By sending a file, it's a couple of electrons going across thousands of miles. And if they've got their own equipment, we can communicate them and educate them on a whole other level, because they can test their own ideas in real time. So to answer your question, yes, we will be looking to expand this to actually use the public domain to source parts and the recipients of the content to make their own, encouraging that as well. Coming back to Sumi's story, if that answers your question. Anyone else?
Yeah. So you've talked about expanding forward. Have you thought of anything past, obviously your presentation, 15% of adults are illiterate, past the school years, the implications of educating adults?
Yeah, we have spoken, I know, sometimes about this and how pod could be useful outside of school. And at Coco, where I work, the schools are really remote, and the school is the hub of the community. So I think it would be amazing if these will be able to be used for community education and film nights and other and for the whole community to use, not just the school. And then that also helps with buying into the product as well. If it's their product, the whole community owns it, then it's safer and it's going to be well looked after. But yeah, I think we shouldn't be limited to the school only. It should be.
One of Jack's favourite phrases is, "What is a classroom?"
No, that's been drilled into me, that I can't. Well, I think that the use of this technology kind of questions everything, because this could be a classroom, your bedroom could be a classroom, whereas traditionally in the West you're so used to these predefined notions of a classroom. It has to have a thing at the front, it has to have desks in a certain way, it has to be this colour. We're really challenging everything about the whole education system. And I've only been with Chris for a year, and I honestly cannot wait to see where it goes, the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, because I think it's really just the beginning of, changing everything, really. I get really,
Any more questions from the audience? So I have a couple. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I've got a couple pre-made as well.
The content from tonight, is it available anywhere online, or do you have a transcript, or do you have any presentations that are scheduled in the future?
Do you mean the content in terms of our presentation?
Yeah.
So our website's basically a brochure of what we've just presented, minus the kind of behind the scenes. There's videos on there. We've got some presentations from pitch decks that we can send out. No problem. But that's my email there. But globalteacher.co is the website, and it's pretty much all on there.
Okay, so this question is probably more for Janice than everyone else. So obviously this journey has been probably about 4 years-ish. We're in probably year 4 from start to finish, like you mentioned. Janice and Chris's relationship was pre that. Tonight is not just one achievement. We talked about this really briefly earlier. You said it's been a collection of achievements to do. Can you talk us through some of the achievements that you pinpointed over the last 4 years to get you to tonight?
Goodness, right.
Just a couple, you know. We've only got another 10 minutes.
I was just going to put up a chair and make myself comfortable. Right, yes. Chris and I first met, it'll be in January, I think 4 years. I was asked to mentor him. My background is education and IT, but I happened, as it turns out, to spend over 20 years living in Africa. And I've had this requirement to kind of do something, to give back to a country where, frankly, I spent a lot of my formative years, was educated in some local schools, and then went back as a teacher. So I met this fairly, I think I'm allowed to say, fairly nervous young man with a pencil and a notebook, and an idea which was compelling from get-go, and I apologise for overusing the word compelling, but it really was. It was one of those things where you just understood we were going to go somewhere. I didn't know how long it was going to take, and I didn't really know which route we were going to go down, but we were definitely going to get somewhere. And there have been, as Zoe kindly mentioned, there have been a number of occasions when Chris has had to meet challenges. Going to get his fairly substantial donation from Tony Trapp was a major one, because the very first time we met him, we went together. We spent a little bit of time kind of rehearsing what we were going to say, who was going to say what. He hadn't actually been in a room before where he was looking to put forward what it has been up to this point, his life's work, and asking somebody to judge it, and not only that, but to actually put money on the table because they supported it. So I've seen him go through that from a very nervous, we came out with £10,000, I mean, we were just so excited, the pair of us, to the six-figure sum he bagged a couple of weeks ago. That's been stunning. He's won a number of awards because he's had to stand in front of people. So from sitting down, kind of constantly, reading his notes, occasionally looking up at me on a one-to-one basis, he stood in front of groups of people, made very passionate, very compelling presentations, and won a number of awards because of that. I keep missing the award dinner. Why don't I get invited? Nothing to do with my age.
I'm sure I invited you to my award dinner. I'm sure I did.
There you go. I'm sure you did. So yes, there has been, and again, at the risk of overstating the obvious, there's been a journey. There have been some huge achievements, many challenges. I know since Chris started to pull a team around him, which he started to do a couple of years ago, it's been wonderful to share the burden with those people. But just managing a team's been a bit of a challenge as well. And I think to get us all here today, not least because of the snow, trains, buses, and all the rest of it, is tantamount to his success as a superb entrepreneur.
Amazing. The
Thanks.
last one before I hand back to Chris for a close. In regards to funding, so you mentioned obviously that you've had this big win recently in terms of a donation. What kind of stuff, and I think this is more for you, Jess, in terms of grant applications and funding you've had previously, how have you managed to continue the last 4 years? What other avenues have you gone down for funding?
So, just like briefly, most of it,
we've only got a couple of minutes,
but most of it up till now has been just volunteer hours. Chris's.
Yeah, I mean, make no mistake, everyone who you see there until this day is voluntary. Everyone. Jack's worked on this a year, 15, 20 hours a week. I've done this for the last 2.5 years since it was a company. I'll not say 40, 50 hours a week for free. I set up a website company because I needed to eat. And then I was building websites for people, managing this, and then I managed to get a mortgage on my website company. So now I've got these two things, and I'm like, but next year I get to quit that and just focus on this, thankfully. So it is what it is. It's like the craziest thing. It's the hardest thing. I now get why Elon Musk, and I never really thought much about him before, but I was listening to him, right? And he said, I don't recommend becoming an entrepreneur or starting a business to anyone, actually, because he said it's like staring into the abyss and eating glass. And I was just like, and I was like, it's so true. It's like, so I was like, you're my hero just for like laying it out like that, because no one tells the real story, and that's the real story. It's a grind. And it's a grind, and people like Tony, people like yourselves coming out at night to support us make it all worthwhile, for sure.
one last thing, again for you, Chris, as a founder and entrepreneur, what is the advice that you would give someone who has, like the first video stated, that burning desire to do something? What advice would you give?
What advice would I give?
Said that it's like
What I would say. Yeah. What I would. There was loads of things I would say. I have a favourite quote, and it's: "Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and go and do that. Because what the world needs is people who've come alive." That's one of my favourite quotes. But also, what I would say is, when you're going after something, you're chasing a dream. There's a period of time where you're just running on adrenaline for the first 6 to 12 months. And then after that, the reality sets in and you meet resistance. And what it becomes, like people documented the hero journey or David and Goliath, sword in the stone, it's that. The outside is completely kind of a mirror for your turmoil. You solve them challenges, the opportunity opens up. And you have to be prepared to go through that journey with yourself. And that's the journey. And that's what I would say. I'll be prepared to meet the resistance, not only meet it, go through it.
Thank you.
So that's it. Yeah, awesome. So there was just one last thing. Zoe actually came up with this amazing idea, and on your seats, you might have sat on them, but they might be on the floor. And we've done these pledge cards, and if you would like to support us, there's 3 ways you can pledge. You can pledge time, money, or you can pledge a pod. And the cool thing that we're thinking about is with pods is when corporates and when individuals sponsor pod, we're thinking about putting who donated it, maybe why they donated it, and giving them that personal kind of touch. So if you're interested in that, place it on your pledge card. Zoe will collect them, and that's been it really. Thank you very, very much for coming out. As I say, there's been some challenges getting here. We were meant to be on 2 trains. We ended up on 5 different trains somehow. Jack and his girlfriend were on 2 separate trains each. Don't even ask. But we got here, and it's just massively, massively appreciated. This is a milestone for us. To mark this, to put the flag in the ground, to look forward to 2022, as I said, with that fuel behind us, and let's see what happens. Let's see if we can educate 1 million people using these solar power projectors.